And welcome to the Link Up podcast. Shorthand again. Victor is still on vacation in Southeast Asia. Send him all your well wishes, your DMs. Ask him to bring back some sushi, some sake, any memorabilia that you may want. So shout out to Victor. Appreciate him. Miss him. Love him. But we're doing our Behind the Ballot series, getting to know your political candidates a little bit more intimately, better. And in the studio today, we have with us Miss Gueva Richards.
Yes.
She's representing East End for the Cayman Islands National Party. Thank you for coming through, and let's have some fun.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so just to get the air clear, one of our listeners constantly calls me a fake East Ender because she says she never sees me in East End. And I had to tell her the reason for that was my mother would never let me leave my grandmother's house because she didn't want me to go down the road, hang out with the bad boys. So I couldn't go past by where Daniel Bar is and thing. She said that's an absolute no-no. So it was either I was at my grandmother's house or across the street at my aunt and uncle house, and that was it.
Oh, we got
so that's why she never saw me. But anyway, it's okay. I'll take it. I'll whatever. But I grew up in Red Bay, but all of my heritage is from East End. My Grisons and McLaughlins, McLeans. Yeah, so that's my people then.
Yeah, well.
And you? Where part East End you from?
Well, I'm originally from, I guess you would call it Central East End. I don't know if there's a Central, but it would have been where the now post office is.
Okay.
In the back there, that's where I grew up.
Where the football field was?
Yes. So the football field would have been to the right of that. And there's a road just down in the back there. And that's where I grew up. My grandparents were the house just as you come out front. And out front, my great-grandfather would have been Bernal Dixon. So that home that was now converted. So that whole area was my stomping ground. And it used to be the clinic. The post office now, fun fact, actually was the clinic at one point. So I spent many days in there with my toes buck or cut on my finger. I was a huge tomboy as a child. So
you used to sneak out, go by the Pirates Week Festival late at night, or since you were right across the street?
No. Much like your mom, I didn't get to go out. I went to school and I had this favorite cousin, and every day her mom would pick her up from school. She would pick me up. I'd go up by her house and my mom would wait until around about 5:30 and she'd come and she'd pick me up and I'd get a beating every time I got home. I told you not to go somewhere. I was like, yeah, but mommy. She's like, no, you gotta listen. So it was interesting, but that was my stomping ground going up. So anywhere between the now playing field or heritage field, that area. I now live in Sand Bluff.
Okay, you move uptown.
Uptown, but not uptown, but not out of town. Not out of town.
Hey,
yeah.
I always joke like, Sand Bluff, like you could never walk there from Central East End. That is a far walk. Sometimes I be at my mama's house. My mama lives Sand Bluff as well, and I'm like, that's a long drive. Like going from East End to there is like another 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, but it's good exercise. I mean, not that I've done it often. Just saying. I tried riding it once and I made it there. Then I had to take a break before I went back home. But it's good. It's a nice, quiet area. Yeah. Reminds us of what East End and Cayman actually is. I loved it. I've been there since December 2003 is when I moved into my home in Sand Bluff. Raised my kids there. And I absolutely love it. I love the quiet, the tranquility. I love the whole fact of you're in nature, but you have your neighbors around you. If you pop out the road and walk down, you see people.
Yeah. So speaking of raising kids in East End and such, obviously you had to take your kids to school.
Yes.
They probably went to East End Primary.
They did.
And then they had to transition to high school, more centralized in town. What's the evolution of traffic been like for you over the years?
It has been horrendous. That's the only word that I could imagine to. We've woke up previously. I could leave town at 7 maybe.
You mean leave East End?
East End, sorry, to head to town. Like at about 7 or
7 a.m.
That was when I could leave East End. That was when you asked for the evolution.
Yeah.
Where it started. Nowadays, it's. I still have a 16-year-old. I have 4 kids. The oldest of which is going to be 29 in June. The youngest of which just turned 16, and there's a 10-year gap between the two boys. And I take him to school every morning because he does go to school in Georgetown, and we have to get up at 5 o'clock and sometimes even earlier, because if we're not out of the door before 6 a.m.,
you have to get up before 6.
If you leave at 6, you can still get there in time, but it means 2 hours of traffic. Like 2 hours. He's not eaten breakfast at home in 7 years. We literally get up in the morning. If we're leaving at 6 or 6:15, I cook breakfast. He gets in the back seat. Here you go. And he eats on the way to school. 7 years.
Wow.
That is how long it's been. That traffic has just gotten progressively worse.
So what do you feel that we should be doing to address some of these woes that the East Enders are feeling coming into town with their kids? Because that's a rough way for a child to grow up.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm just one example. I in many ways, I think I've been fortunate. My son has been fortunate because I can flex my hours a bit, if that makes sense, or could previously flex my hours a bit. So instead of getting in at 8, I could get in at 8:30. But if we left home at 6:10 or 6:20 and I got him to school at 8, if I was lucky, we have some kids now that are going to like SciFec and otherwise. They have to be out by the road at 5:10 a.m. for pickup. For the bus to pick them up. They're not getting up at 5:10, mind you. They have to be by the road at 5:10 a.m.
Ready to go.
Ready to go. So it's a quality of life that's impacted. We do need to look at traffic from a multi-pronged perspective. It can't just be one solution. We've got too many vehicles on the roads. That's a fact. Our population is estimated to be somewhere around about 87,000, give or take, 88.
I feel like even that's conservative.
Right, but that's the estimated.
Yeah.
We've got over 50,000 licensed vehicles in Cayman. I mean, we've got no reliable public transportation system. We've got nothing that allows us to have schedules to see, what buses, what routes, when they're coming, what's available. We've got no designated bus stops except for the few that have been donated by Rotary and set up throughout the island. But we're far behind when it comes to things like that. Just the simple convenience of a properly managed, operated, and controlled public transportation system. That is one solution.
And how do you feel about the east to west
arterial?
Yeah,
I think it's a must.
Yeah,
it's something that had been planned for quite some time. I do understand and appreciate the environmental impact. And I do feel that we do. I'm a very big advocate of preserving our history as well as our environment, our culture. But we also have to understand that there are hundreds, thousands of people that are impacted, and the quality of life for those persons are they're significantly deteriorating because of the traffic woes. So those are, for me, it's a must.
So you spoke about your previous life now, because obviously running with the party is your current life.
Yes.
What was your previous life before, and why the transition?
Ooh,
especially when you still have kids that are in school and such.
Yes. So I spent the last 25 years of my career with CUC. I started at CUC in 1999, and I moved through various departments, including the lines department. Funny enough, I started in lines, in the technical aspect of it, and I moved over to the customer service team, and I worked my way up. When I left, I was manager of customer services at CUC. The reason that I decided to leave, it wasn't an easy decision for me, because I do have a 16-year-old, just like everybody else. When you've grown your career, I didn't have the luxury of going off to university. I had kids, got married early. I worked at some points 2 jobs, but I worked 2 jobs and went to school and raised kids because I felt that an education was important. I felt that progress was important, and improving yourself for me was key. What I've seen in Cayman in general is that our young people don't have the same opportunities that I have or had. I could come out of school at high school and get a job, get in the door, and was afforded the opportunity to grow, to go to school and to progress in my career. That's not the same that's happening for our children today. I've heard the cries again and again, we can't find a job. It's difficult. I've actually experienced that. My eldest daughter went off to university in the UK, and she came back. She graduated with honors, a degree in communication and English language. During her time there, her summer interns were all within the government, And when she came back, she could not find a full-time job. It took a year.
So speaking of Caymanians finding jobs, I've heard you speak about bringing back the Caymanian Protection Board.
Yes.
Can you edify us a bit on what that is and how that works and how it benefits Caymanians?
Absolutely. So the now immigration law, let's start there.
Okay.
Was actually called the Cayman Protection Law, and it evolved to the immigration law. But the intent of the Cayman Protection Board was just that, to ensure that our Caymanians are protected with the growth in our economy. For me, it is about ensuring that we're guaranteeing that our children and that our people are protected, they're offered the jobs first. You perhaps would have also heard me say that there are other countries in the Caribbean that are realizing that there are real issues within their economies, their country, and their people have to be placed first. I believe that's true for Cayman.
Yeah, I heard you say many times, everyone must benefit.
Everyone must benefit. And I'll tell you why I say that. It's difficult for us to see. It's important. Let me first say that we know that Cayman is one of those, I guess, jewels of the Caribbean, if you will, where we as Caymanians we don't have enough population to sustain the rate of growth or to fill all the roles.
Right.
And I think that puts us in a very unique position. That makes us like we should not have unemployment in Cayman at all, because we have so many jobs that we can't fill them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But in reality, it's the opposite. We fill those jobs with persons that are not from Cayman. And I have no problem at all with bringing in the labor force that we need. But my opinion is Caymanians must be first. Everyone that wants to work, that is capable of working, that can learn on the job or otherwise, should be given the opportunity first.
So
everyone
you feel
must benefit.
This board is key in kind
Absolutely.
of bringing that together
Absolutely.
and ensuring that Caymanians can be placed,
yes,
I guess, at a more efficient rate.
Yes, absolutely. For me, I think that we've to pacify businesses and to grow development. We've lost sight of what's important, because if we're developing a country and the people of the country are not benefiting, who are we developing for?
Yeah, we've heard that so many times and we feel it, actually.
Yes.
So much as well. So speaking of immigration, I guess, and the work permit holders, you've also suggested some changes to the PR point system. Mm-hmm. Can you share some of your thoughts on how they could be enhanced to, I guess, not make it as not that it's super easy, but mm-hmm. It seems to be that we're at the point now where we can tighten it up a bit more now that we have an influx.
Absolutely. So it's really a couple of things that we need to look at. When we implemented the point system, and I can tell you this from a personal perspective in terms of knowing persons who are here, great friends that I really like and admire, but when they're approaching that time that they have to leave Cayman, they have to leave the country that they came to, and they've never experienced the level of life or the quality of life that they did before coming here. It's that, oh my gosh, I need to get a piece of property. Oh my gosh, I need to go do some volunteer hours. And while the people themselves are nice, it is not genuine from the perspective of this is what that person would have done. So it is quite literally that. We are creating, we've created a system where points are earned by, walking dogs is the most common one. Volunteer. It's a fact. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need people to walk dogs. But as soon as they earn the points, they stop walking the dogs. So clearly, it's just to fulfill the criteria of the volunteer hours.
Right.
Saying they have to purchase property and have a certain amount of funds within there. I understand the concept behind it, because we want people when they're here, when they become Cayman citizens, to ensure that they can maintain themselves at a certain standard of living. But at the same time, by doing that, we've artificially inflated the market. What I have seen, what has been shared with me is that we have persons that will buy that property and then get their PR or status, and then what prevents them from then selling? And they do. In some cases, they're selling to the next person that they know that is here, that wants to have property to earn status.
And now, speaking of property as well now, one of the things I thought about that you said, and I actually kind of liked it, was the, what was it called? The Buyback Cayman. Buyback Cayman initiative.
Yes. That one was absolutely, that was a brainstorm in the CINP, and certainly the champion by Gary, but it's something we really believe in, right? We believe that if we can do that, where we can offer incentives for Caymanians to purchase property, or that are purchasing properties for people that are foreigners. We have a lot of investors here that are not Caymanian. Right. They're not going to either live here, and when they sell the property, if a Caymanian can afford to buy that, yeah, let's do that. Let's ensure that our land is coming back to our people.
And the idea behind it was, just so everyone knows, is that if a Caymanian is purchasing a property from an expat,
correct,
that there is no stamp applied to that purchase.
Yes, 100%.
And that would be for land or housing?
Yes. Of course, there'll be a cap in terms of the value. Mm-hmm. But yes, it would be for either land or property. And it is purely so that we can incentivize our Caymanians to buy back our property. If it's foreigners selling it, let's buy it back.
So what do you feel has caused this housing crisis that we face now, where your kids, well, probably all of them now, I don't know if any of them are property owners now, but you said your oldest was 32?
No, the oldest is 28. She'll be 29 soon, but 28. Yes.
So yeah, he's at that age, or she, sorry, are that age now where they're probably looking to buy a house.
Well, I'll say that again, and this is why when you asked me the question about giving up my career to do this and why, I've been fortunate to raise my kids and get that opportunity. And, at this stage, they've all purchased property. She's the only one, the eldest is the only one to date who's actually been able to build a home. The other two, in terms of cost of property, it went from 80, 90,000 when she purchased hers in 2001 to 150 and 110 just for land.
Yeah.
So at this stage,
and the cost of square foot for a house now is
exactly. So yes, they're at that awkward stage. I'll give you this. The second oldest is, the two girls are the oldest. She's bought a piece of property for 150,000, and of course now she is to work for a year and a half to pay that down so that she can qualify to build on it.
And your 16-year-old is going to be in real trouble.
Absolutely. And so is everybody else's 16-year-old that is not already fortunate to have property given to them by their parents or grandparents. And here's the kicker. Caymanians have always been land rich.
That's been the one benefit that I guess yourself and I'm pretty sure you're a millennial like me, have benefited from, was that from the baby boomers era, that we've always been land rich, like you said, and we've been fortunate to, a lot of us, to inherit some sort of land and have it passed down that we can use for equity for other things. But that is becoming slowly not the case, as we have not. I think some of us probably have sold off our land,
which is exactly where I was going with that, right? So we've been land rich, but because we're quite literally cash poor, and we don't have our Caymanians traditionally, because they're being locked out of jobs, because they don't have great opportunities. What we've seen is a lot of them are divesting of that land. They're selling it.
Desperate for the
They're
cash.
selling it for that cash, and here's the thing: they're selling it cheap.
Right.
I have seen. Even in East End.
As soon as someone comes around with a nice suit and tie.
Absolutely.
And here's the checkbook.
Thing. 80% of them are not local. We're selling the land cheap. They're taking it, they're developing it, and selling it back for prices that me and you or other Caymanians could never afford.
And I heard you also mention that, I forgot what you called it, but they're buying up the land and just holding on to it. Banking the land.
Land banking.
Land banking, yeah. So they're just scooping up all of this land for dirt cheap, waiting for opportunity to...
Absolutely.
And they're depriving other people of being able to be homeowners because they're obviously not reselling it right now.
Absolutely. So for me, was it 2022, 2021, when Canada placed a moratorium on the sale of property to foreigners for investment purposes. Right. It was a wake-up call. And I read that article, and I actually shared it with some of the now politicians. And I said to them, this is Canada. It has millions of acres. We're the Cayman Islands. We have 76 square miles in Grand Cayman.
Right.
Land is a premium. And if they can recognize that their economy was being artificially impacted or inflated by investors buying property, not to live there, investment property. Why are we not looking at some type of restriction? I'm not saying we stop it entirely, but I said we consider how and when we sell property and to whom we sell the property.
Right.
And it was something for me that is, it says...
And East End is the largest landmass in Grand Cayman.
Right now, the largest undeveloped landmass is in Cayman, in Grand Cayman. And for a lot of ways, and while we need development in East End, we need structured development that will benefit the community, but also maintain that environment that everybody loves. Everybody drives out to East End on a Sunday. That makes us unique because we've maintained a lot of what the rest of the island has lost.
Absolutely.
And so for me, that is where we need to find that balance. We need to bring services to East End, certainly, because, right now, as I've said before, there are many people that leave East End because it's just too far. And when I say that, I don't mean just to drive in the traffic, which is horrendous, but also the facilities. They have to take their kids, to programs in Georgetown or Savannah or Bordentown. They have to, and there's very little that is built up within our own community in East End. So we need services, we need certain buildings and certain development, but we also need to balance that with how we develop it. We need more farming. This country is at a stage where our costs are highly attributable to food. I don't know about you, but when I go to Foster's, or any of the supermarkets, any of them, not just one.
It's rough, man.
It is. When I had 4 kids in my home, 3 little ones.
I only feed me in it, rough.
Right? It is extremely expensive. I walk out of there and paid $300. I'm like, what did I get?
Oh my goodness.
So if we can increase that, and East End is a prime place for that, right? We've got the land mass, as we just said. We've got good land. But we also have good farming technology that we can teach.
So how do you want to... Is this getting more people interested into farming? Is this through government subsidy or incentives?
Absolutely. So, farming in and of itself, I think, is growing. We've got a number of farms in East End now.
Right.
But I think what we need to do is we need to start as a government to see what we can develop, right? I said it the other night when I was at the chamber. We pay 22% duties on fruits, vegetables, produce that comes into this country. We can literally grow all of our greens in Cayman. All right? We've got container farming that is taking off. I
forgot the name of those guys. Yeah, I remember that they do a wonderful job.
They do a wonderful job.
Yeah.
They provide We
should get them on the show. I completely forgot about them.
Absolutely. They provide
herbs. I'm going to make a note of that.
Listen, they provide herbs and to all the supermarkets locally.
Yeah.
And it is a phenomenal job that they're doing. But it's one company. We can grow that. We've got people that produce various things. And if we as a government say, okay, here's what we need. We need to create opportunities for farming in these specific areas. We incentivize locals, and we ensure that they're getting the subsidies, the training. Education is important, right? Because they're people that are willing, may want to do it, but not necessarily know how to do it.
I will say that the Department of Agriculture, they put on some wonderful classes to teach people about irrigation systems, farming techniques, and all these kinds of things.
They do, but why don't we have those in the schools?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I mean, teaching it, and I get that there's a certain level of responsibility for individuals to take to actively seek what's out there.
But sometimes people don't even know.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is my thing. Why are we not teaching in school? I don't know about you, but when I went to high school, a couple of years ago, we had a class in agriculture. I mean, I didn't grow anything. I have a brown thumb, but nonetheless, it's a part of what we did.
Right.
We learned how to grow things, and I know that various schools do grow boxes and stuff, but they're more projects versus teaching skills that people will that children will take with them. When we grew up in Cayman many years ago, and you might relate to this from an East End perspective, you always hear the old men say, they're going in their ground. They're going in their ground.
Yeah. My grandfather had grounds.
Exactly. And that just means, for those persons that know what a ground is farming.
Yeah.
They planted what we call provision, the cassava and the yam and the bananas. And that is how we subsidize our own homes years and years ago. We didn't have to buy that. That was readily available for us.
And you had cattle.
Exactly. Even now, I mean, I cannot tell you. I got so excited the other day. I was out for a drive, and I stopped and I saw somebody, and they had literally just slaughtered a cow, and they're like, they got fresh cheese. I was like, can I have some? Can I have some? I mean, because it's local.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's nothing like having fresh produce local.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so, yeah.
When Christmas time comes around again, everyone goes out, makes their Christmas beef order.
Which is why I was so excited that I got it outside of Christmas, right? So, yeah, I was extremely excited,
So, you decided to throw your hat in the ring, right? And I'm assuming, I don't know exactly what your process was, but who made the call, or what was the decision process around you joining the National Party?
So, I'll say, first of all, that while I'd been in and around politics for a number of years, primarily in the back end of politics, I spent some time, 12 years, 20 years, on supporting Mr. Arden, and first as a committee member and then as his chair. But it had never been something, albeit that he'd always said, I think you could do this, you should do this. It had never really been something that I had thought that I could or would do.
Speaking of Mr. Arden, he's farming now. So shout out to him bringing up the farm of the East End. Big up Mr. Arden.
Thank you for that, because absolutely. But it's always something that he had said, I think you could do this. And, I do feel that I was always passionate about it. But I always felt that, somebody else stepped forward and I'd be that support. The decision to step forward for me was primarily driven by just what we started off with, the difficulties facing our country and our people. I cannot tell you how many times I've had conversation with young people, old people, people suffering, people complaining. I would go to work every day, and one of the standard conversations was just that.
Because you were at CUC.
Yes.
So you hear it front and line center.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not just from the customer perspective and how they're hurting, but just talking to people in general, talking about their experiences, from a CUC, from a work perspective, getting that exposure to the fact that our children are failing school. They cannot do basic tests. We're talking about English and math and just basic comprehension. we had something like a failure rate of like 80% of the people that we tested. Basic things. These are concerning for me. And I got a call, oh my gosh, I want to say April last year, February, or March last year.
Okay, 1 year ago.
1 year ago. And it was actually from Carmen Macfield. She reached out to me. She had been trying to contact me, and she didn't have my number, but she's tenacious. So she called somebody she knew that worked with me and said, hey, can you give Miss Jiva this number? Tell her to call me. And, you know, that kicked off the conversation. I made an arrangement to meet with her, and, you know, and we had a good conversation. And I met with, you know, the now party leader, Mr. Dan Scott, and of course, Gary Ruddy. And we had a good conversation about the issues that are in Cayman and how we as a team could potentially address them. But more importantly, the whys. Why would we want to do this? We would want to do this because we are Caymanians. We have children, each of us, 3 of us. And might be Gary, I don't think has any yet, but grandchildren. And the reality is that we could no longer sit quietly in our success, if you will, while the rest of the country suffers. Because all of us, Carmen had a career in finance. I had my career at CUC. Gary obviously is a businessman, and so is Mr. Scott, retired, but nonetheless successful. But none of us felt that we could sit in our success quietly while the rest of the country suffered and nobody did anything. We all felt we had the skills. We had the right reasons to step forward, not selfish reasons, not looking a job or seeking employment, but because we wanted to change the trajectory that the country was on. So that, along with the quality of the persons that were being assembled for the Cayman Islands National Party, people who are, you know, not just intelligent and capable, but people who have good moral values and standards, people who we would want to lead and look up to as leaders.
So since you've been on the campaign trail now, what's that process been like for you? What are the enjoyable aspects? Oh, we all know that, you know, it's hard going door to door, you know, staying late nights, but what's been the fun stuff for you?
The fun stuff, the best stuff is the people stuff. You just forgot that I just shared. I spent 20 years in customer service.
Right.
So people are it's my love. I enjoy sitting and talking with the people. I quite literally, I think if there's one drawback, one bad thing that I could say is the hardest is walking away from a conversation. And that for me has been where I've had to kind of like, I've had to train myself, but I'm averaging an hour and a half. That's an average time
per conversation.
And it's simple. People want to talk.
Someone wants to be heard, right?
Someone wants to be heard. You know, people want you to listen. They want to feel like they matter. And that is what's not happening now.
What do you feel I guess you've had 4 years under the previous, elected individual. What do you feel East End has been missing in those 4 years?
Tangible, measurable changes that have impacted the people at their core. There have been some progress made as it relates to roads and shoulders of roads and the like. But in terms of programs, none. Just breaking ground on some property now, but there's really no progress that have been made to impact the lives of our East Enders, to in at its simplest form, to build pride in the community, in just knowing that this is East End, and you know we've gotten benefits from it to a certain extent. We've got more more joblessness or unemployment than ever before. We've got people struggling. So for me, it's all well and good to work on buildings and roads, but I think it's more important to work on your people and for your people. And that's where we're struggling. I was speaking to a young couple. I said it before and I said it again. We've got people leaving East End because there's nothing there for them. A young, successful couple have told me that they're considering leaving East End because they have 2 boys and it's too hard. They get up too early in the morning to leave to take their boys to school, and then they have to be
coming back.
It's the same thing, but it gets worse because they're engaged and they're successful, and they have to go to town 2-3 evenings a week, or stay in town 2 and 3 evenings a week, and go on weekends to take their children to participate in events or sporting events or programs, because we have none in East End
for the kids to
nothing.
Right.
We drive through East End. I can drive through East End at 4 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and there are kids on their bikes riding on the road, or just, and some of that is, but having some place constructive for them to do. They're either at home. We have a library program that helps with reading and stuff, but that can only go so far.
So one of your agendas is to flesh out things to get engagement
Absolutely.
with the community there.
Absolutely. And to take it further, to ensure that, we have support for development and training. We've already, like, one of my things is I want to create. I know we have work and that's all well and good, but as the MP, I feel it's important for me to understand how many people are unemployed in East End.
Right.
What their skills are, right? What they don't have, and how we can help them to be, to be employed or meaningfully employed. And so an unemployment register is a must for me. In fact, we had the draft. I got the draft yesterday for that register, because at any moment I want to be able to know how many people are seeking jobs, what their skills are, and how we can train them. I've been speaking to Michael Miles, who's also a part of the CINP. Phenomenal job that he's done with Inspire Cayman. And how can we bring those together with our East Enders to benefit them, to give them the training and the development to grow? But to take it a step further for our young people, for our children, to have sustainable programs in the country, in the community. Because the thing is, we've had things pop up here and there, but they all die away because, it's not enough people, as in children, to participate, or it's all volunteer. And after a period of time, it just naturally dies away. So we need to, my opinion is that it has to be both volunteer combined with government for sustainable programs, but meaningful programs, things that you would offer similar to how you would do like YMCA, normal YMCAs, where you'd have a place where they can go and you have multiple generations. We have got children that are, East End has got such a unique opportunity. I tell people we should be graduating just geniuses. Our classroom size in East End Primary School, 10 children average.
Right.
10 children with a teacher and a teacher's aide.
Right.
We see those same numbers in Cayman Brat, and quite frankly, do a phenomenal job. We're not doing the same. So we have to ask the question, why? How can we fix that? That's a
great point.
Yeah. How can we ensure that, maybe if they need that extra little help after class or after school, how are they getting it? How are we looking at the needs from a mental health perspective for these children? How do we know that they have a safe environment? And that is what I would seek to do, and create a place where we have sustainable programs that offers that safe haven, that support that children may need, and that opportunity to grow and develop into better people. And that's not just by me, but by partnering with other persons as well.
Excellent. Well, Ms. Jiva, before we wind down, I want to give you an opportunity if you want to have any last words for your people in East End come April 30th. Please feel free to share your last thoughts. Well, final thoughts here on this program for them.
Well, for me, I'd like to say again that I step forward because there are true needs in our East End community as well as in the country. I'm ready and willing to make that choice to be a servant to the people, because that's what I believe an MP is. It is not the other way around, where someone is elected and they essentially become untouchable. It is absolutely the other way. I would be hired for the people, working for the people, and answerable to the people. So again, if the people of East End want dedication, they want someone who's going to be answerable to them, someone who's going to turn up, and someone's going to work hard and fight then I would implore them to vote for me.
Come April 30th.
Absolutely.
All
April
right.
30th.
Miss Jiva, how can people get in touch with you if they're, I mean, I'm sure everyone in East End knows you already, but in case there's somebody that doesn't, how can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. They can reach out to me by phone, WhatsApp me, call me, 938-1862, or they can send me an email. That's jiva.richards@nationalparty.ky.
Excellent. Well, all the best on the campaign
Thank
trail.
you.
Good luck to you.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you for coming through.
And thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Once again, go send Victor all of your DMs. Wish him well on his endeavors. But we'd like to thank Miss Gueva Richards for joining us on the couch today, or the chairs. We no longer have the couch. And you've been tuned in to the Link Up podcast. Until next time.